When thinking about Egypt, iconic images like the pyramids, mummies, hieroglyphs, the Nile River, and opulent cat statues often spring to mind. However, this fascinating historical era encompasses much more. In this video, we will delve into some of the most extraordinary and lesser-known practices of ancient Egyptians. The ancient Egyptians are well known for their reverence of cats, but less known is their high regard for baboons. These animals were essentially viewed as animal police officers. Baboons were kept on leashes by the Egyptian authorities and were released on criminals when needed. In various hieroglyphs and artworks, including a piece from the 5th dynasty around 2498-2345 BC, known as Ancient Kingdom, there are depictions of baboons capturing thieves or other criminals, either biting them or holding them by the leg. Beyond their role in law enforcement, these baboons were also trained for tasks like fruit gathering, beer brewing, and dancing. They were so esteemed in Egyptian culture that tattoos of their images have been discovered on some mummified bodies. Archaeological discoveries in Egypt have not only uncovered mummified human remains, but also those of crocodiles. These crocodile mummies were preserved differently from human mummies. For instance, in 2019, excavations at an undisturbed tomb in the Kaaba del-Hawa necropolis on the Nile River's west bank revealed 10 crocodiles mummified without the use of resin, a key element in traditional mummification. Finding well-preserved mummified crocodiles is a relatively common occurrence for archaeologists. It is thought that the ancient Egyptians offered these animals as sacred gifts, possibly as sustenance for the afterlife's inhabitants or as representations of specific deities' reincarnations. Notably, crocodiles were linked with Sobek, the god of water and the Nile's flooding. The ancient Egyptians took oral hygiene seriously and had unique methods to maintain fresh breath. They created a tooth powder by grinding bull hooves, ashes, and burnt eggshells with pumice. This powder was applied to their teeth and gums to tackle hygiene issues. While effective for mechanical cleaning, this method often led to significant gum bleeding. Additionally, the Egyptians used a blend of pepper, iris flowers, and rock salt for cleaning teeth. Notably, they were among the first to create the precursors to toothbrushes, known as chew sticks. These were crafted from branches, with one end serving as a toothpick and the other as a brush. They also made their version of mint candies, which involved boiling herbs and spices like frankincense or cinnamon with honey, creating chewable or suckable treats. The ancient Egyptians, including Cleopatra, commonly used sour milk, typically from donkeys, as a bathing liquid to enhance their skin's look and health. Today, it's understood that sour milk contains lactic acid, a natural alpha-hydroxy acid, which exfoliates the skin, allowing new, more uniformly pigmented skin cells to emerge. It's believed that Cleopatra's daily baths required milk from as many as 7,000 donkeys, ensuring none of it was wasted. The ancient Egyptians, known for their cleverness and resourcefulness, used a method for healing wounds that might seem odd today: applying moldy bread. Surprisingly, this technique was quite effective and can be seen as an early precursor to modern antibiotics like penicillin. The mold found on bread often contained a type of fungus that produced chemicals capable of killing or inhibiting the growth of bacteria, making it beneficial for treating cuts, scratches, or other open wounds. Hatshepsut, a notable female pharaoh from Egypt's 18th dynasty, faced challenges due to her gender. While ancient Egypt was generally progressive in terms of gender equality, this inclusivity rarely extended to its rulers, and female pharaohs, of whom there were only a few, often received less respect than their male counterparts. To navigate this bias, Hatshepsut adopted a unique approach. She started wearing a long, false beard, emulating the traditional style of male pharaohs. This attempt to appear more masculine is evident in several artistic representations of her, where she is depicted with this artificial beard. In ancient practices, it was believed that mouse bones could heal illnesses in infants and young children. According to these beliefs, to treat a sick child, the mother would consume a mouse, and then the bones of that mouse would be placed inside a small cotton bag. This bag, secured with 7 knots, was then hung around the child's neck as a form of talisman. There's also speculation that people, particularly from the lower social classes, used a similar method to address bedwetting issues in children. Canopic jars, used in the mummification process of ancient Egyptians, were special containers for preserving the internal organs of the deceased. Each jar was designated for a different organ. The first for the lungs, the second for the liver, the third for the intestines, and the fourth for the stomach. The heart, seen as the soul's seat, was left inside the body. Initially, these jars were plain, but over time they evolved into more elaborate designs, eventually depicting the 4 sons of Horus. Hapi, with a baboon's head, held the lungs. Du-Amutef, with a jackal's head, held the stomach. Imseti, with a human head, held the liver. And Kebesenuef, with a falcon's head, held the intestines. According to legend, King Pepi II may have had the longest reign in ancient Egyptian history, an impressive 9 decades. He became pharaoh at just 6 years old and is said to have lived into his mid or late 90s, ruling during the 6th dynasty. However, this claim is debated by many contemporary Egyptologists, who suggest that Pepi II's reign lasted around 64 years. If this shorter duration is accurate, Pepi II would be the second longest reigning Egyptian pharaoh, following Ramses the Great, who governed for over 66 years. When exploring the topic of beer-making baboons, it's clear that ancient Egyptians had a fondness for beer, using it alongside bread as a form of currency among traders. Beer and bread were not only integral to their economy, but also played a crucial role in religious offerings to gods and ancestors. There's a belief that the soldiers and the estimated 10,000 workers who constructed the pyramids were compensated with beer and bread. The importance of these commodities was such that Egyptians interpreted a flooding Nile or a poor crop yield, hindering sufficient production of beer and bread as a sign of the gods' displeasure. Ancient Egyptians showed their reverence for the deceased by including toilets among the burial items. This practice stemmed from their belief that the dead continued to live in another realm, where everyday necessities like food, water, and even bathrooms were still required. In ancient Egypt, the hair of a pharaoh was regarded as sacred and was to remain unseen. Consequently, rulers consistently adorned themselves with crowns or a specific headgear known as nems. This distinctive fashion choice distinguished pharaohs from ordinary citizens, who were prohibited from wearing any form of headgear. King Tutankhamun, in a symbolic display of dominance, intentionally wore sandals designed with the images of his adversaries on the soles, symbolizing his conquest over them with each step. In his tomb, archaeologists discovered over 80 pairs of such footwear. Notably, one pair featured an illustration of an African prisoner on one inner sole and an Asian captive on the other, representing the enemies of Tutankhamun's kingdom. Hieroglyphs, an ancient Egyptian writing system comprising about 2,000 characters, included only consonants, lacking any vowels. This characteristic means that the precise pronunciation of ancient Egyptian words remains unknown. Interestingly, some evidence suggests that a sound equivalent to the letter E might have occasionally been used in hieroglyphs. Additionally, hieroglyphs are recognized as one of the earliest forms of writing in human history. The Scarab beetle family, encompassing over 30,000 beetle species globally, is often referred to as scarabs or scarab beetles. In ancient Egyptian culture, these beetles were revered for their perceived regenerative powers. Egyptians believed that scarab beetles mirrored the sun's journey across the sky, symbolizing light and warmth. This belief stemmed from the beetles' behavior of rolling dung balls, which contain their eggs, from east to west, akin to the sun's path until the eggs hatch. Scarab symbols are prevalent in Egyptian art and jewelry, signifying regeneration and creation. These beetles are also linked to Egyptian deities: Khepri, the god of the rising sun; Atum, the god of the setting sun; and Ra, embodying the sun itself.